I confess, I have 2 cents here in my pocket. You know, teachers, we're not rich. I have 2 pennies here, 2 cents. And I'm just going to make 2 points about the Common Core. Okay? I like the Common Core for mathematics. I'm going to take it a step further. I love the Common Core for mathematics. I think it's the best thing that's happened to our standards in our nation. 2 reasons. Number 1, it's common from state to state. And I know some of you are like, oh, that's bad. We want smaller government. You know, we want districts and states to decide on what we're going to teach. And, you know, I understand your hesitancy because in certain subject areas like science or you know, even social studies, there might be topics that you think should be excluded or included, and you want to base that on your community and your values and whatnot. I get it. But we're talking about mathematics here. And as far as mathematics, and you know, maybe language arts, but mathematics for sure, no one's raised a red flag like, you know what, I don't know if you should be teaching like fractions. Little edgy, little risque. No, okay? And so math is like this universal language, right? Which is why when it comes to standardized test scores, we're always on the bottom of the list. Other nations have rigorous standards, and I'll talk about that because that makes my second point. So the first one I'm still on is common. And think about when we didn't have common standards in the states. We had states that had their own standards, and then with No Child Left Behind, they had their own cutoff scores. And so we really couldn't tell, you know, which states were performing and even school districts per se in comparison, because one state could say, you know what, my cutoff score is going to be here. And I'm going to create this test that are all really low-level questions. Like, what is 20% of 80? Very simple questions, low-level, low depth of knowledge questions, right? In some cases, all multiple choice. You know, and I'm from Michigan, and I remember giving the MEEP not too long ago, 3 years ago, and I did that for 10 years while I was a teacher, and I thought that our state standards and the MEEP test was very rigorous. There were a lot of questions that students had to write about, even in math, so they weren't all necessarily multiple choice. And they were multi-layered in terms of skills. You know, maybe there were 2 skills and a lot of application and story problems. I've been teaching in California for 3 years, and it was just a stark contrast to look at the CST in comparison, and I saw that, you know, firsthand. And so when different states can kind of dictate the test, the questioning, the cutoff scores, what is proficient, what is not proficient, right, then we open up a disaster, in my opinion. And so I think we need to all be on the same page. We need that commonality, which is part of the Common Core. And also, when we talk about commonality, we talk about teachers. You know, I'm working with teachers in other states now, and we're working online, and we're in forums, and we're doing, you know, podcasts and webcasts, and we're all working together and pulling resources. That's awesome. It's not just one state, it's an entire nation. So I can look at a video and see what this teacher in another state is doing. That's fabulous. And try it in my classroom. And so we have this huge network in our nation to come together and be on the same page. That's fabulous. Second point, second penny, is that, well, it suggests it's the core, right? Which is part of Common Core. It gets to the core. I think that these standards are the most rigorous. Now, I read an article by someone, Cal State Berkeley, and wow, I'm going to talk about that in another vlog, another video blog. I just learned that term, so I'm cool now. But I have a lot to say about that. But let me just say that I know for a fact, just because you move, for example, integers from 6th grade, where it may have traditionally been, and you move it to 7th grade, does not mean that your standards are less rigorous. It just means that somebody thought about the developmental appropriateness of a topic. Okay, we're going to get to that by the time we are at K-8. We're going to get to everything that we did before, but we're going to sequence it in a way that we're introducing topics that are developmentally appropriate and in a conceptual manner, and go deep enough with fewer topics so that we're not just having kids be robots and memorize steps and procedures and algorithms, but that they understand and they have skills. And that's where the mathematical practices are there. They kind of force a math teacher to say, are you having kids critique the reasoning of others? Are you having them draw a visual model to really understand what they're doing and why it works? That's the problem, why we have so many kids not enjoying math, because they don't know what they're doing and why they're doing it. but they're just like, I'll bow down to the math teacher. I will do step 1, step 2, step 3. I do, we do, you do like me. I'm all-knowing, you follow me. And there's no autonomy, there's no discovery, there's no excitement in math because we're not using the models where kids really understand what's going on and they get excited because they get it. Okay, I never heard a kid say, I am so excited that I understand step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on my own. I have kids getting excited when they can look at a pattern and discover it, and they're so excited about it, just like a kid figuring out a puzzle. And they're like, I got it, I see a pattern, I figured it out. That is rigor, okay? Mathematical practices such as justifying your reasoning, defending, critiquing, using models, like I said. All of these are the mathematical practices so that we are teaching mathematics in a way that makes sense to kids, right? And there's skills involved because at the end of the day, don't we want our kids to be able to compare and contrast even in a math class and give examples and counterexamples and defend their reasoning? Don't we want them to be analytical, to be creative thinkers, right? And think outside the box and test others' perspectives and other theories? Aren't those skills applicable in math just as they are, say, for example, in language arts or in history or even in science for that matter? So we're robbing kids when we say, you know what, we're just going to stick to, maybe a direct instructional model where I'm going to tell you the steps and you're just going to be a good boy and a good girl and do them. And don't ask why. And I'm not saying that teachers didn't teach this way. There are great programs that have been out for years, but school districts just, and teachers were like, let's just do what we've been doing traditionally. And we live in a different world with different kids. And the idea is kids are shutting down because they don't get it. And if they don't get it, it's not important to them. And they're choosing that. And we don't have the family structure necessarily that really reinforces in every single case education. So we're losing so many kids. And that's why we need to think about this differently and really, really analyze. These content standards for mathematics are rigorous, period. Not only in the content, but in the practices, which is the approach that kids are going to take to learn and teachers are going to employ when they are teaching. Well, that's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. I mean, it's only 2 cents for what it's worth.